If you do have questions, don't be afraid to drop them in the chat. We'll scroll back through the chat here towards the end. And then at the very top of the chat, you might notice that I posted a link. That is to book a one-on-one call with me, 15, 20 minutes, kind of get an idea of where you are and when you're thinking about buying a home, and help you to start putting together that strategy. So that's the idea behind the call. I've also got a couple of free gifts that I want to offer you. Absolutely no cost or obligation. I've got a custom first-time homebuyer guide that I'll send out to you guys, and then also I'd like to offer you, if you do decide to buy a home and you choose to work with us, I'd like to offer you a home warranty to go along with that purchase, just for a little added peace of mind. So. All right, it is 7:01. We're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Like I said, there'll probably be more people jumping in and out as we go through, but we're going to try to keep the distractions to a minimum. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. That'll be perfectly good. But tonight we're going to talk about the 5 costly mistakes that I've seen buyers make over the last 20 years that I've been in this business. And so, I do want it to be interactive. The camera can be on, can be off. It's totally your choice. Feel free to use the chat box and let us know what city you're in or what city you'd like to buy a home in. And if we have any questions, we will get them all cleared up at the end. So this is the home buyer roadmap, if you will. And so my objective will be kind of to talk you through this process this evening, answering any questions along the way and showing you, how you might in fact save a lot of money over versus just winging it. And so that's what we're going to kind of go through tonight. And so before we dive too deep, though, Anaya and Rachel, I hope I'm saying that right. Um, how are you feeling right now when you think about buying a house? I know a lot of people who have never done it before are feeling kind of stressed out. Does that make sense? Concerned? Anxious, maybe intimidated, stressed for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen this a lot. And so my objective, hopefully, is to give you that confidence you need to step into this home buying experience. Because, in my opinion, and I hope to prove to you tonight that buying is a good idea. And so I'm hoping that you'll leave this webinar feeling a lot more confident and in control and at ease about the process of buying a house. And so we'll see if we can't take some of that stress away. And as I mentioned, if you do stay to the end, I've got a couple of free gifts for you. And one of those is my most updated summertime 2025 first time homebuyer guide. It's going to go into a lot more depth and detail than we'll have time for tonight. It's a PDF though, and I can email that right out to you guys. Plus, I have that $600 surprise, which is no longer a surprise because I told you it's a home warranty. And so, just a quick introduction to me. My name is Jason Goodin. I am the principal broker for Virginia First Realty Group, headquartered in Smithfield, although we service the entire Hampton Roads region with agents living in just about all of the cities. And so in 2020, I was a loan officer for Wells Fargo, and then in 2000 rather, and then in 2003, I got my real estate license. And so my wife and I have had the privilege of helping hundreds and hundreds of people now buy homes here in Hampton Roads over the years. So our big why is probably a lot like yours. It's family. So we've been married 33 years. We've got 2 incredible sons, and our favorite activity, I think, is grilling and chilling. So we're not real social people. We don't do a lot, outside of our own 2 acres, and so we do like to go to the parks and go for walks and things like that. So probably a lot like you guys. I think we're just regular folks. So we do love our buyers, and so here's some pictures of some of the buyers we've been able to help over the years. And there's really no, I think there's no more emotional uh, activity than when we hand the keys to that first time buyer for the first time to their new home. And it's a really exciting, a lot of agents prefer to work with sellers because, listings tend to be a little bit easier. But Debbie and I have found in our enjoyment in working with those first time buyers and handing them the keys, there just seems to be a much higher degree of emotional investment. And so we've accumulated a lot of reviews on Google and Zillow, and you could go to this website if you wanted to check them all out, but there's a bunch of them out there. And so we really enjoy what we've been able to accomplish, with the first time buyers. One thing we've learned though is that they don't know what they don't know. And I think that's true probably for all of us. We don't know what we don't know. And so there are 5, I think, really common, almost common mistakes that some buyers make if they go at this alone without a plan or without a strategy, and they just kind of wing it. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And so, we've been doing this now for over 23 years, and I think way too many first-time buyers end up in the wrong house or the wrong deal if they just try to go at it alone. And so my job today is to help you kind of see around the corners, to let you know what to expect, who's going to ask you for how much money and when. And so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. And so we'll get things kicked off here with mistake number one. And that is, frankly, that they don't take advantage of first-time homebuyer programs. So you guys have probably heard of first-time homebuyer programs, right? I mean, I would imagine most people who are thinking about buying a home have probably heard the term first-time homebuyer program, but who knows what that is, and who knows where to go to find out more. And truth be told, there are thousands and thousands of first-time homebuyer programs. And so raise your hand if you like the idea of leaving thousands of dollars on the table. Probably not, right? So a recent Realtor.com survey discovered that most first-time homebuyers, 80% in fact, qualify for down payment assistance, but only 13% of people use it. This was a staggering statistic when I saw it, and it kind of changed, the way I was thinking about how I could reach out to people and educate people and help more people take advantage of these programs. And so there's a website, you see it on the screen there, downpaymentresource.com. They actually track over 2,000 of these programs across the country. So I would encourage you to check that out. If you're here in Hampton Roads, there's at least a dozen first-time buyer programs that I can introduce you to. And so, on average, the survey says that the average benefit through the down payment assistance program is $17,000. And so, right out of the gate, just by finding a lender who cooperates with these first-time buyer programs, you could find yourself saving $17,000. And so that's huge. I mean, that's a nice big jump when it comes to down payment and closing costs. And so I think it's absolutely essential that we consider what it is these first-time buyer programs can do. And so some of them are very, very specific to the location of the home. And so specific being that, if it's on the left side of the street, it may qualify. If it's on the right side of the street, it may not qualify. And so you've got to work with somebody that has the map, so to speak. And of course, I and my lending partner, we have that map, and we can show you specifically what benefit comes depending on where the house is. And obviously, a lot of these programs will be dependent on the income. Usually, they calculate the income based on the county that you live in. And so, if you make less than, say, 80 or 85% of the median income, then there's a first-time buyer program available for you. Some of them may require you to hang on to the house for a few years. And so it used to be that, if you were going to get any type of assistance, you had to live in the home for at least 5 years. That's down to 2 or 3 years now for some programs, which is fine because I haven't met any first-time buyers that are looking to move in the next 12 months. So usually that's not a big deal at all. And then some of these programs have lower interest rates, lower than what is publicly advertised as an incentive and as a help or an aid to get that first-time buyer into a home of their own. And then, of course, some are 100% financing. You've heard about the VA loan, probably, the Veterans Administration loan, so that the military folks, retired and active, don't have to come up with a down payment. There's also a USDA program in our rural communities. And so the United States Department of Agriculture also has a 100% financing program available. And so some of these are down payment grants. And so they might require that you put 1% of your own money into the transaction. And so if it were a $400,000 home, for example, they would want you to put in $4,000, so just 1%. And then they would cover everything else or roll that into your 30-year mortgage loan. Some of these are based on what kind of job you do. So you could be a policeman, a fireman, an EMT, a teacher, someone in the military, active or retired. And so all of these professions have programs associated with them for first-time buyers and for buying incentives. And then some other programs literally exist because of the bank's bad behavior back in the 60s. And so we're going to talk about that too in just a couple of minutes. And some are federal tax credits. So they pay you back annually a percentage of the mortgage interest that you've paid in. And, if you look at an amortization schedule for a mortgage, it calculates all of your payments. And the most interest comes in those first few years. And so this federal tax credit that can pay you back only because you're a first-time buyer is a really big incentive. And so what's cool about some of these programs, though, is that you might even be able to stack them. And so if you're a policeman or a fireman and you're buying a home on this side of the street, then you may be able to double dip, so to speak, and benefit from both of those programs, which is really pretty cool. So I wanted to share this with you. I just got this email And so this was from one of our local lenders, and they're promoting one of their new first-time buyer programs, and they're talking about an incentive up to $20,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time buyers. And this one is $17,000 for first-time buyers, or up to $20,000 for law enforcement folks, educators, healthcare workers, military folks, and it can be combined with other assistance programs. And so you might not be aware of these things because most of the local lenders who put together and create programs like this, well, they advertise to us real estate agents because over 90% of all real estate transactions involve a real estate agent. And so while these smaller local lenders that specialize in these types of programs don't advertise on television or radio, they advertise to the real estate community. And so if you're not working with someone, you may not ever know where to go or how to access one of these programs. And so it was kind of ironic in that I was putting this webinar together the other day, and I got this email from one of our local lender partners. So pretty cool. So here's an example, though. So hypothetically, you want to buy a house, and that house is $325,000, and you're going to use an FHA loan to finance that purchase. Well, FHA requires a 3.5% down payment, but you've got a 5% incentive. So not only does it cover your $11,375 down payment, but you've still got $4,500 left off, $4,500 left over to put towards closing costs. And so we see this all the time when we're working with first-time buyers, that you can literally get into a home for a lot less money probably than you think you can. There's some statistics out there that suggest that the majority of people believe they have to have 20% down payment in order to buy a home. And I can attest to the fact that that's absolutely not true. And we see it time and time and time again when you take advantage of these first-time programs. So two ugly facts, big banks don't really specialize in first-time buyer programs. Big banks may not make you aware of the benefit of these first-time buyer programs. And so, a lot of people assume that, if I'm going to go buy a house, I'll just go to my bank where I have my checking account or my savings account. And I want to encourage you not to do that. They specialize in checking accounts and savings accounts and car loans. They don't necessarily specialize in helping first-time buyers with special incentives or rates or deals. And then, big banks tend to like to remind us that they are big banks, and so they kind of create their own pool, their own rules, and their own packages. And so, if hypothetically you were to go make an offer on a home and you were to present that seller with a pre-approval letter from one of these big banks, they might not be as excited about that as you would expect, because the big banks tend to drop the ball more often than not. And so we have seen that through personal experience. They will pull the rug out from under you or change your closing date kind of arbitrarily because they went on vacation. That's a true story. The loan officer goes on vacation and doesn't tell anybody. And so we're calling and we're emailing. And yeah, true story. We never get a response. We have no idea what's going on with the loan. We're supposed to close, only to find out, that our loan officer was gone for a week. So crazy. So that certainly will stress you out for real, no doubt about it. And so beware of the big banks. That's my advice. Always look for a local lender who specializes in these types of programs and who makes a living doing mortgages, not someone who's doing car loans and checking accounts and savings accounts and all the rest of it. So I want to introduce you to someone really quickly who does specialize in these types of programs, and that's our friend Jonathan. And I think we're really fortunate to have him here locally. And so he actually has been voted #1 in customer satisfaction from JD Power and Associates. He works with a company called Prosperity Home Mortgage, and he has a first-time home buyer engine, if you will. And so he works with first-time home buyers all the time. And so I would be more than happy to introduce you to him. And so just quickly, I want to share some of the programs that I think are special about Prosperity Home Mortgage and our friend John. And so this is my favorite program. It's called the Competitive Edge program. And so again, let's use a hypothetical example. And that is that you're going house shopping. You've got your letter in hand and you're going to go shopping and you fall in love with a home. It's absolutely perfect. But the problem is 2 or 3 other people also fell in love with that home. And so they've got their pre-approval letters and you all submit an offer to purchase this home. You've probably heard this story before because during COVID, every single house, it seemed to be that was the case. People were going crazy bidding, trying to outbid one another, right? And so what this Competitive Edge program through Prosperity Home Mortgage does is it says, If your offer is accepted, Prosperity will make a $30,000 on-time closing guarantee where they will pay the seller of the property and they will pay the listing brokerage of that property $15,000 each if for any reason your purchase loan doesn't close on time. I've got to tell you, folks, that carries a lot of weight when you're negotiating to make your offer stand out over and above the other three offers that that seller is looking at. And so it's a really, really powerful program. It makes your offer way better than anybody else's offer because I can promise you no other lender is offering a $30,000 on-time closing guarantee. And then just a couple of other programs. If you're self-employed or you're an independent contractor, or maybe you have a home now and you don't know, how you're going to buy another home without selling this home, but you don't want to end up homeless. Prosperity Home Mortgage has a program made just for that reason, because it was a big deal a couple of years ago when people started having that fear, that worry, that concern. Maybe you're only on commission, right? Maybe you're a commission employee or an independent contractor, and so you're afraid that you can't qualify. Or maybe you do, multiple income sources. Maybe you're doing DoorDash or Uber or something like that. Prosperity has programs where they can consider all the different avenues of your income, and so get you into a home of your own. And so, I just wanted to point that out because they do specialize in working with first-time buyers, and I think it's really, really important that you find a lender that is familiar and experienced in that. So, all right. So we understand how important it is to find the right lender when we go home shopping. Mistake number two is the buyers do the right things, but sometimes they do them in the wrong order. This is so true. And so again, we're talking about that first time buyer that's out there, probably not sure where to go for guidance. And so sometimes it's like trying to put together this 1,000-piece puzzle, without ever looking at the big picture or without ever looking at the box. And so you have all the pieces to the puzzle, but you don't really know what it's supposed to look like. And so tell me if this is sounds like any of you guys. And so maybe you look at Zillow, maybe you look at Realtor.com for months or years, and you've saved or hearted dozens of homes. Probably, if you don't know what you don't know, you may disqualify yourself from a home or a neighborhood that you would really like to have because you didn't know about the first time buyer program and the down payment incentive. And so maybe you could have actually gotten into that home that you wanted, but you disqualified yourself, right? But eventually you get curious. Maybe you go into a couple of open houses or you visit a few different builder models around town. And finally, and unfortunately, you just get tired because you've been telling yourself for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months that you're buying a home. And so you just get tired, and eventually you walk into a builder's model or an open house and you end up buying something. And that's great because you bought a house. Congratulations. So you accomplished that goal, but there was no plan or there was no strategy. And so, did you do it as efficiently as you could have? Maybe not. Did you receive all of the benefits that you could have received? Maybe not, because we didn't put it together, maybe with a clear picture of what it could have looked like. So, all right, and so we'll jump into mistake number three, and this is a big one, especially the mistake number three is they get sucked in by the builder's marketing machine, and I'm sure you guys would agree that everywhere there used to be a tree, now there's a house, right? Because I don't know how it is for you or where you live, but around me, it seems like they're building everywhere. It's apartments, it's condos, it's single family, it's townhomes, it's everything. I really don't understand those three-story townhomes. That's way too many stairs for me, but it just seems like, there are a lot of builders out there and they're all really busy right now. And so I want to caution you to beware of the handsome sales dude and beware of the friendly sales lady. Because at the end of the day, they're there representing the builder and the builder's best interest. And they have a contractual obligation with the builder to do just that. And so there's nobody actually there looking out for you. And I think it's too many buyers fall victim to the balloons and the brochures and the flags and the model homes. And I'm sure it's absolutely easy to do. But there are some good reasons to beware and some good reasons to have someone who is obligated to look out for you in your best interest when going through these new construction sites and looking at these model homes. And so, and also the first deal that you see with a builder may not necessarily be the best deal. And so don't be afraid to play the walkaway game, right? Because there are a lot of builders and they're all building. And so sometimes they have deals fall apart at the last minute. Maybe a buyer lost his job, or maybe they got transferred out of state or something. And now he's got this house. that he needs to sell. But they, of course, they might not share that information with you, that they had a contract on it and that contract fell apart. And here's an opportunity to get an even better deal, right? And so I want to caution you to beware of going into a new home development unrepresented and not having someone there by your side. I think it's an easy way to get caught up in the emotion and the fluff and the brochures and the balloons and the cupcakes, and not necessarily leave there with the best deal that you could have had. So also, with so many builders in our area, you've got to kind of got to question, their standards, right? Are they using the most up-to-date, codes and compliance and materials? Do they have an experienced subcontractors? Are they getting things done in the proper order that they're supposed to? And so not all builders are created equal. And so if you think that you want to build, if you're pretty committed to the idea of building or buying a brand new home, reach out to me after the webinar and let me know. And I could recommend a couple of builders that we're familiar with in the Hampton Roads area. But just beware. I want to caution you because I've seen too many builders, or too many buyers rather, go into these new home communities only to have had second or third thoughts. Less than a year later, they're talking to us about, how do I get out of here? So keep that in mind for sure. All right, we'll jump into mistake number 4, and that is a lot of times buyers will get intimidated by the numbers. And so there are a lot of numbers when it comes to buying a home or getting a mortgage. I mean, I tell everybody, do your finger exercises. When it comes closing day, you want to stretch your fingers out because they're going to cramp, right? We do a lot by e-signing now, so it's not maybe as bad as it used to be, but there are a lot of numbers involved in buying a home. And so we hope to clear up some of that confusion and talk through those closing costs and make sure that you have a full picture and a full grasp of what's included, what are closing costs, and when do they come into play, and how do they come into play. If you're working with a lender, certainly you're going to have maybe an origination fee. You might have points. You might have mortgage insurance. If you're working through, certainly you're going to work through a title company or an attorney's office. They have their own set of fees. You have to buy title insurance, which ensures legal ownership of the property for your lifetime. And so there are a lot of fees. You have HOAs sometimes. Sometimes you might have an interest rate buy down or points rather. You're going to have escrows. You guys might have heard the term escrows. Those are your prepaid homeowners insurance plus your prepaid taxes for the county that you're buying in. And so all of these things will be added up and put on just a couple of sheets of paper, and it can be a bit intimidating. And so I want to encourage you to reach out to us and let us kind of give you the full picture before you go house shopping so that you know exactly what it is that you're getting into. So the bad news about closing costs, as I've explained, is there's a lot of them and they're expensive. The better news, though, is that today, in today's market, we can get somebody else to pay them for you. So that's way better. And so it was much, much more difficult during COVID in the housing rush, when everybody was so excited about getting into a home for 2.5%, 3% interest, right, for 30 years. Those are incredible. We'll probably never see those rates again. And so if we were talking a couple of years ago, I would have told you, listen, you're going to need some cash. It's unlikely that we're going to find anybody or any seller to help cover these closing costs for you. But today, that's changed. And so I saw a stat just yesterday. It says 44% now of sellers are offering concessions, and concessions are generally a contribution to the buyer's closing costs. And so that's great. And so things are starting to turn back around now to where they were pre-COVID, pre-housing frenzy, if you will. And so the great news is that although they're expensive, we can absolutely get somebody else to either pay all or a significant portion of those closing costs for you. So, and I'm only guessing, but in my house, it's all about the monthly payment. It may be that way for you. I know approximately, Debbie and I know approximately how much we have coming in each month, and that's how our budget is determined. But what would you say if I told you that, it's possible to buy the more expensive home for a lower monthly mortgage payment? And so through location, programs and incentives, it's absolutely possible. And we see this all the time. And so, especially when working with builders, a lot of builders are offering additional incentives, like a mortgage interest rate buy down. And so maybe this builder is offering an incentive and this builder is not offering an incentive. Well, those incentives could be worth hundreds of dollars a month off of your mortgage payment, even if it's just for a couple of years. And so I just want to encourage you to make sure that you're looking at the full and complete picture when it comes time to buy a house, because there's a lot to take into consideration. And so location, programs, and incentives will greatly impact your ability or your desire to purchase. So, all right, let's take a minute and talk about the C word, credit, everybody's favorite word. So, if you are concerned about your credit score, relax. I do have a credit repair expert that we've been recommending for years and years. He does a great job. And it's not unusual to see a credit score go from, sub 600 to 620, 640 in just a few short months. And so it can absolutely be done. 620 is going to qualify for probably most of the first time buyer programs. 640 is where we would like you to be. And so 640 will open the door to all of the first time buyer programs in our area that I'm familiar with. And so if you're concerned and you think that might be a problem for you, let us know early and often, and we can put you in touch with our credit repair expert out of Utah, I believe. But they do a fantastic job. And like I said, we've been recommending them for years now. But I do want to make a couple of notes. And so the first takeaway with credit is don't allow somebody to make a hard pull on your credit. There are two types of pulls now. There's a hard pull and a soft pull. And so the hard pull could impact your credit score. And if you think you might be borderline, if you might be marginal with respect to that credit score, try to avoid the hard pull on your credit, because it could impact your score just by 2, 3, 5 points, and it might make a difference. Instead, go somewhere where they'll offer to do a soft pull. Now that costs a little bit more for the entity or institution that's pulling your credit. It costs them a little bit extra money. But John, our friend, of course, at Prosperity, they'll do that for you just to kind of get a peek behind the curtain and see what we're dealing with and where we're starting from. And so if you're concerned, always look for the soft pull versus the hard pull. And the second takeaway when we're talking about credit is don't be a hero. If you have some kind of a collection or a charge off or a judgment or something on your credit report, just because you're thinking about buying a home, don't rush right out there and pay that off. That's a bad idea, and it backfires way too often. And so I want to encourage you strongly to run everything through John first, because we have literally negotiated with sellers for a concession to pay down or pay off the buyer's your debt. And so it's absolutely negotiable. We've done it over and over again. And so I want to encourage you, don't run out and pay off old past due, collections or charge-offs or anything like that. Let's take a look at the full picture and ask John how we might address some of these issues if they exist, right? So those are my two pieces of advice when it comes to credit. All right. So now we're going to talk about the money. We'll talk about who's going to ask you for how much money and when are they going to ask for it. And so this is the idea of these next few slides. And so first and foremost, though, I want to tell you that our group at Virginia First Realty doesn't ask you for anything. We don't ask you to contribute or pay us anything. We do get paid, but not until you've gotten the house that you want. And so we will work with you as long as it takes. And so whether it's 6 months, a year, or 2 years, we'll work with you side by side to help you get ready and prepared to buy a home. And so don't worry about that. So we do get paid at the end of the day. We don't do it for free. And so there are 5 ways generally that your agent will be compensated. But again, only once you've gotten your home. So there are no upfront charges, fees, or expectations. And I should mention that all fees are negotiable and not set by any local, state, or national authority. Asterisks, right? But the most common way for your buyer's agent to be paid is from the net proceeds of the sale price. That's true over 90% of the time. And so 90% of the time, the seller will pay your agent directly from the net proceeds of the sale. Hardly ever, in fact, I haven't even seen it yet. So I'm going to say hardly ever does the buyer bring cash to closing to compensate their agent. But the buyer might add a portion of that compensation to the sale price in order to finance those dollars. Again, hardly ever, less than 5% of the time. A seller and a buyer might agree to share in the buyer agent fee. So maybe the buyer's gonna, maybe the buyer pays 1%, the seller pays 2%, right? So we've just seen that recently. And so at the end of the day, this is a conversation that you will have up front and often and at the time of contract, because it is our goal to help you meet your goal. And for most first-time home buyers, that would mean asking the seller to pay your agent from the net proceeds of the sale. So that's generally how it is that your buyer's agent is compensated, and so there's nothing really upfront to worry about. So now when we do find a home and we're what we refer to as under contract, you've signed a purchase agreement. The next thing to happen is we're going to have to collect an earnest money deposit from you. And that gets held in an escrow account. And it's kind of like your skin in the game or your show of good faith, if you will. And so in our area, most of the time, $1,000 is sufficient for an earnest money deposit. Sometimes it's less than that. But I'm using $1,000 because that's generally what I see. Some sellers may require more. It is negotiable. But again, it's put into an escrow account with a title company or an attorney's office, and it's held there until the end of the transaction when it will be credited back to you. And if you have a surplus at closing because your closing costs are being paid by somebody else, then you'll get that $1,000 back in the form of a check. The very next thing to happen would be your home inspection. And so generally within 5 to 7 days, you and I are going to meet a third-party inspector that you choose to meet us at the home and go through that home with a fine-tooth comb. Those inspectors usually charge $400 to $600. It is negotiated, but it buys you this 5 to 10 day window of opportunity to change your mind or to at least get a more thorough view of the property's condition. Because it may look great on the outside, but there might be some hidden defects or concerns, in the crawl space or on the roof or in the walls, that sort of thing. And so we want an independent home inspector to go through there with us and talk us through the condition of the property. And so generally that's $400 to $600. You do have to pay the home inspector most of the time at the time of the inspection. But it's well worth that little investment for the peace of mind that you'll have at the end of the day, because you've got a much better understanding of the condition of the property that you intend to buy. And, if you decide not to buy the property, we'll use that contingency then to get out of the contract, collect or recoup your earnest money deposit, and we'll go on down the road and find another home. So it's well worth the $400 to $600 that it costs to have that home professionally inspected. Absolutely. So, all right, couple of other things. And so we're under contract. And so we've done our home inspection. We intend to move forward. We've put our money into an escrow account. It's being held by the attorney until closing. A couple more things we need to check on. Most lenders will require a termite moisture inspection to make sure there are no termites, because it's a big deal here in the southeastern region of the United States. And there's no fungus or mold or moisture problems, especially in a crawl space home, because a lot of times the moisture comes up from the ground and it can cause problems with the understructure of the home. Not all the time, but it is not unusual. And so that inspection is generally about $150. The guy I use, he charges $150 and does a fantastic job. Now, most of the time we can get the seller to pay for that. But if we're in a competitive situation, and this is a competitive offer, and there may be 2 or 3 other people that are also trying to buy the house, you might opt to pay that $150 inspection fee as part of your offer. And so it is, again, it's negotiable between the buyer and the seller, but it's something that you're probably going to have to, decide once that contract has been ratified. And usually that inspection will take place in the first 3 weeks. So, and then you might have secondary inspections, like if there's a swimming pool, if they have stucco siding, you can order a separate inspection for that. Maybe the home inspector suggests that there may be a problem with the HVAC, the heating and air conditioning, and he recommends that someone else come out and inspect it. That might come up. Maybe there's a plumbing concern. And so all of these secondary inspections are negotiable, and we can negotiate with respect to who's going to pay for it and how soon it needs to be done. But at the end of the day, we want you to have a complete and full picture of the product that you're purchasing. So what do we do once these reports come back? Well, we're going to review the reports in detail. So you and I, hypothetically, will go through these reports page by page, and we'll determine whether or not there's anything there that's going to completely scare us away from the property. If there is, we'll terminate the contract, we'll get your earnest money back, and we'll go on down the road. there may be a few things there that we can negotiate through. And so maybe it is an HVAC unit that needs further inspection, further diagnosis, or repair. Maybe it's that a couple of the windows have gone bad and need to be replaced because they're all fogged up, depending on the temperature outside. Maybe it's a minor electrical issue. And so we can ask the seller then through negotiation to make these repairs for us. Or sometimes the seller will say, I'm not in a position financially to make these repairs. I can't afford to replace these windows, but here's what I'll do. I'll offer you, a $1,500 or $2,000 additional credit towards your closing costs or a reduction in the sale price of the home. And so we can negotiate through some of these repairs and head off any of those expenses that you might run into had you not had these inspections done. So, and then of course, after we've gotten through the home inspection and the secondary inspections, the lender, your lender, will order the appraisal. And so while you're going to pay the appraiser, they work for the lender, but they're there at the end of the day to make sure that the lender nor you overpay or overinvest in this property. And so an appraiser's job is to compare this home in all of its features to nearby properties and justify the price that you've agreed to pay for it. And so sometimes appraisals will come in higher than you've agreed to pay for them. And that's great because the seller can't go back now and change the price. And so you've agreed to pay 400, but the appraisal comes in at 415, 420. That's free money to you. That's free equity, as we say. And that's a true blessing. Sometimes, though, the appraisal will come in low. And so you've agreed to pay $400 or $400,000 for the home, but the appraisal comes in at 390 or 395, so a little bit light. Now what do? Well, we go back to the seller and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm sorry, the appraisal has come in less for less than we had agreed to pay, and we just can't move forward because we don't have the ability to make up that difference. And so 99% of the time, the seller will reduce the price to meet the appraisal in order to keep the transaction on the tracks, so to speak, so that we can go to close in just a couple of weeks. Because usually the appraisal doesn't happen for like 3 weeks into the process. And so everybody at this point is so invested in this transaction. You are, the seller is, the listing agent is, the buyer's agent is, the mortgage company is, the inspections have been done. Everyone's so invested in it at this point that nobody wants to watch it just fall apart for a few $1,000s. And so more than likely, the seller will renegotiate and reduce the price to meet the appraised value in order to keep this transaction moving forward. But again, it is another point of negotiation, but it's peace of mind too for you as a first-time buyer, knowing that you're not over investing in this particular property, because that's happened. You guys probably heard about it the last 4 or 5 years. Ever since COVID, people were offering 20, 30, 40, $50,000 over and above someone's asking price for a property, and they absolutely over invested in that property. Yes, they did. Now the good news is home prices are still appreciating, and as a rule of thumb, we say if you're going to be in the home for 5 years, chances are you're going to get your money back. So, what our assumption is that the people that paid well over and above what the list price was had the intent to be in the home for some extended period of time. Otherwise, they're going to lose, and we see that sometimes too. So, after the appraisal, and we've negotiated our way through all of these different items, we're going to come to celebration day. That's closing day. And so we're all going to meet, me and you, and we're going to meet at the attorney's office or the title company. You're going to sit down and you're going to sign like 500 pieces of paper. And then eventually I'm going to hand you the keys to your new home. And it really is a celebration. My wife and I try to make it a celebration. We're probably going to bring you a gift, and we're probably going to bring balloons, and we're going to make it a special occasion because that's exactly what it is. It is a special occasion. It's a really big deal, and you've laid the foundation there in buying a home for your future and your children's future. And so it's an exciting day. And so if you're using a down payment assistance program and we're able to negotiate some concessions from the seller, it is not unusual for you to get into a home with less than $2,000 out of pocket. And that often surprises people because, like I said earlier, the misconception is that you need a 20% down payment. And that's just not the case, especially for first-time buyers. There are programs that make this much, much more attainable. And so hopefully you guys will be in a position to take advantage of those. And so All right. So the big mistake number five. So this is the last mistake. I was going to tell you about five mistakes, and so this might be one of the biggest, in fact, because if you get this one right, everything else should fall into place. And so mistake number five is that first-time buyers often don't hire a negotiator. All too often, and unfortunately, over 80% of today's buyers, according to a recent survey, hire the first agent they talk to. Now, this could be just about anybody. This could be your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your friend of a friend of a friend, right? Um, that's probably not in your best interest. And so we'll go through and talk about why that may not be in your best interest. Because listen, anybody can open a door, anybody can open the lock, regardless of what they tell you on HGTV. Our job is not just to show you houses. That's like 2% of what it is that we actually do. And they do make it look a lot easier on TV than it is in real life. And so our job really is to pick up the sword of negotiation and to fight for you and to look out for you and your best interest, even over and above our own. And so that is a contractual fiduciary responsibility that we take on when we agree to work together. We use the shield of experience to protect you from getting burned or getting into the wrong house or the wrong deal. And so we don't necessarily believe that the inventory that's in the MLS is all the inventory. And I find way too many agents today who are committed to the idea that, well, there's just nothing for sale. And so I have all these buyers sitting on the fence because there's just nothing for sale. That's not necessarily true. And so when you hire a negotiator, we'll actually go out and find that home for you. If you know what community, what neighborhood you want to be in, we'll find someone there who's thinking about selling and maybe even secure you an off-market deal, saving you even more money. And so we're going to call in favors, but we're going to find more homes for you to view at the end of the day. That's the goal. So you tell us what you want, and we're going to go out there and help you find it. And so we're going to consume copious amounts of caffeine, analyze every listing in your search area to find the one that we can negotiate under your budget. So that's the goal at the end of the day. And so, what's in it for me is I want you to build more equity faster and retire earlier because we were able to squeeze you into the best deal in the best neighborhood for you. And of course, selfishly, I want 5-star reviews all over Google, right? I want you to be an insane raving fan and tell everybody you know how great your agent is. And so, we can build our online profile. And so that was the thought behind sharing some of these 5 first-time buyer mistakes is that, we're trying to spread the word that there is a difference. And so is everything we use going to work? No, probably not. But John and I do promise to pull out all the stops until the problem submits. And sometimes we get beat up along the way. Some of those negotiations are tough. Some of those lender underwriting guidelines are tough, but we're going to work with you and we're going to get through it and we're going to help you get what you want. So your job at the end of the day is just to tell us what you really, really want and let us figure out how to get you there, whether it's next week, next month, next year, or 2 years from now. Doesn't matter. We're going to work together and get you to the finish line. So all right, so we'll take a quick recap now. So what have we talked about? We've talked about always looking for the right first-time buyer program. As we've learned, the average first-time buyer program incentive is about $17,000, and so that's a huge chunk of anybody's down payment or closing costs. The second thing we learned is to have a plan or a strategy, and don't just wing it until you get tired and end up buying something, finding yourself a year later in either the wrong deal or the wrong house. Beware of builders because when you walk into a model home by yourself, there is literally no one there looking out for you. They have a contractual obligation to look out for that seller, the builder in that case. And then the fourth thing we talked about was knowing your numbers. So closing costs, points, fees, mortgage insurance, prepaids, escrows. Make sure that you have a clear understanding of exactly what this is going to look like at the end of the day, because so many mortgage calculators online don't necessarily take all things into consideration. And so make sure that you're working with somebody that can give you all of the information, the full and complete picture. And at the end of the day, if you get this one right, everything else will fall into line. And that is to hire a true professional negotiator. Not your friend's friend of a friend who sells homes the third weekend of every second month, right? So hire somebody that you trust to look out for you and your best interest. So thank you guys for sticking with me. We are going to wrap this up here. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hopefully, I've taken some of the stress out of this process for you. Hopefully, you're feeling a little less anxious or a little less uncertain or a little less concerned about what it looks like to buy a home and what are the steps that you might have to navigate and who's going to ask you for how much money and when. So that being said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I do want to make sure that you guys get the updated first-time homebuyer guide. It's updated for summer 2025. If you do book a one-on-one with me tonight, if you go into the chat and you book that one-on-one and you buy a home within the next 4 months, 120 days, I want to personally buy you a 12-month home warranty worth up to $600, just adding a little additional peace of mind to this journey and this process for you. And basically, that's going to cover everything. It's like a bumper to bumper warranty, if you will. When you buy a car and you buy the extra warranty package, that's essentially what this is. And there's several different companies to choose from. And you're welcome to choose anybody you like. I just want to be able to offer that to you as a free gift and an incentive. And a thank you for attending this webinar, and then of course choosing to work with us at the end of the day. And so I want to post this link here in the chat for you again, and encourage you to go ahead and schedule your one-on-one. If you do have questions that you'd rather talk about offline, we're certainly happy to do that. And so, like I said, if you do book a call with us, then we'll talk about putting together a specific plan or strategy for you, something that makes sense. So. And I know that I talk fast, you guys, and that yes, Rachel, you're going to get actually you'll get the recording tomorrow, so that's definitely going to happen. So feel free to share it with somebody that you know or care about, and encourage them to reach out to us if they have questions. I know that this webinar has a lot in it, and it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose, right? So I just grabbed this image off the internet today. I thought it was perfectly appropriate. It's drinking water out of a fire hose. But if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to sit down with you on the phone or in person and walk you through a personalized strategy for buying your first home. So wherever you might be in the Hampton Roads area. So, let me see if any questions. Any questions at all? So you guys can unmute now if you want. Looks like there's just a few of us in here. So if you want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to do that and ask a question. I'll do my very best to get it answered. Oh, cool. How about that? That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you were here. Absolutely my pleasure to share this information with you. And I'm sure you're in absolutely good hands. So that's exciting. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for tuning into the webinar. I will send the recording out to you guys tomorrow. And if you want that first time homebuyer guide, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send that over to you. All right. Well, it looks like we're going to wrap this up right on time. It is almost 8 o'clock, and I can smell my wife's meatloaf. It's got to be just about done now. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. If there's ever anything that I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always here, always available, and always happy to help. You guys take care. Have a good evening.